So I've been restoring and colouring black and white photos of women in Norfolk working during the First World War. It's not something I'd done before, because initially what I was doing was I was looking at these photos and I was going to recreate these photos now, but some of them needed kind of restoring, you know, they had scratches and things. So I started working with that and I thought, well, what happens if I add colour? If I'm looking at how photos look now in comparison, then what would those photos look like if they were taken now? And I kind of started looking at the idea that the colour makes the photos a lot more relatable to how they are now. And there's a lot of kids that don't realise that photos used to be in black and white, so when they see them in colour it kind of changes everyone's perspective on the photos. It makes people realise that they're real people and not just a black and white photo. Some of them are women in uniform, so it's kind of a case of looking at the uniforms, finding photos taken in museums or whatever of, you know, the uniforms they have on display. And then when it comes to women in normal clothes, it's a case of looking at the fashion back then, what colours were mostly used, looking at sort of the tone of the grey and kind of judging how dark it is to roughly what colour it might be. But yeah, kind of trying to be informed about what people were wearing is pretty key. So I have a notebook with tons of different uniforms and all the different colours and just trying to work from that. I've done one photo where it's a lady working in a ticket office at a railway, and there's so much going on in the background and it's kind of like making this tone of wood a different shade to this tone of wood, but making sure it all fits. That's really difficult when there's a lot going on in the background, because that's harder to guess than the clothes, because you can't look up railway ticket office fashion, you know, that doesn't really exist. Normally I'll start with something they're wearing, kind of the main block of colour on them. So if they're wearing a dress, I'll start with the whole of the dress, and the background normally comes last. We don't actually know who she is. From what I understand, she's a territorial army nurse. So again, I had to kind of research the uniform, looking at photos that were taken of the uniforms in museums or people's collections. She was the first one I did. This was kind of my experiment when I realised that I really enjoyed doing this. And yeah, I feel like I have kind of built a connection with it after it being my first one. It kind of made me realise that this is a really nice thing to do. And I hope I've done her justice. I think I've brought her out quite nicely.